Working? Okay, yeah. I put together a small slideshow of some relevant summer production skills. Let's see if this, oh, and this is, I want to thank again the Brooklyn Horror Society. I love that. It's really, you know, we, by which I mean they and all of you, really helped raise a significant amount for the fund, and that which is the most meaningful thing I do now that I don't do this anymore. Very much. Anybody see Suitable Flash? Woo! So we just did you know, we're back at work, and Barbara, the star, Catherine Michaels, almost got to reprise her role, but had a very similar role in Suitable Flesh. Plus, she produced. So we're friends now, and it's great. It was great to work with her again. Let me see if I can. Yeah. And there they are. That's the motley crew. There's Barbara and Jeffrey, Stuart, and Brian Usda, the producer, these, because this is a production still from Re-Animator, and because these wonderful people with Bruce Abbott, who played Dan Kane in Re-Animator, because these wonderful people did such a great job making Re-Animator, we got to make From Beyond. When Stuart, when Re-Animator was as successful as it was, immediately Stuart wanted to make another, and Empire Studios, Charlie Band, wanted us to make another, and Brian Usna, who among all of us is the true believer. He's really the horror fan of the whole group. Wanted to make another Lovecraft film. And this time, Stuart wanted Barbara to be the lead. He wanted her to get the role as a professional woman whose struggle the film really was. And I don't think Jeffrey knew what we were going to end up doing to him. And this is another production still from Re-Animator, and the man standing next to Stuart, between Stuart and Jeffrey, is somebody who gets who doesn't get enough credit for his work in Stuart's work, and that's Matt Galt, the DP, the director of photography. I always told Stuart, these are horror movies. They should be darker. They should be scary. And he said, no, my DP, Matt, says, it's a movie. You have to show people things. And it was also Mac's idea to make the resonator purple, to make it purple. It's on the far end of the spectrum, which means that the next step is beyond the seeable with our senses, it's beyond what's seeable with our senses, beyond seeable light. So it was Mac's idea that, which was thematic, and also it worked brilliantly in the film. This is what I do. That's the first page from the actual screenplay of From Beyond. And if you recognize the font, you'll know that this was printed on a Macintosh, which was taller than it was wide. Yeah, you know, it was one of those where you had to tear the pages apart. You know, so yeah. But I show you this page because this is what I tried to do as much as possible when I wrote screenplays for Stuart and for anybody now, which was these were my favorite pages. Film is a visual medium, and the less dialogue and the more we are telling the story with what you see, with descriptions of what you see, the better a film it is, I think. Well, at least what we try to do. And Stuart was Stuart and I worked together for a long time. I knew Stuart in high school. When I met him, he was an art student and I was a math and science guy. What we discovered that we both loved horror films, sort of coming at them from a different way, different angle. And he always wanted to know what I saw. He didn't always shoot what I saw, but he wanted to know what it was. And you'll notice it's not a screenplay with actual, close-ups, two-shot, medium shot. It doesn't do that. But it actually, the short paragraphs describe the actions and the character moments that I saw. And Stuart wanted that from me. And this is a production still from the and what we did to Jeff was just. This is just to show the makeup. This was a still just to show the makeup, and Stuart snuck in. Stuart photobombed it. Jeff's makeup for this took 3 hours. And the makeup for Ted Sorrell in some of those scenes took longer than that. I want to do a short plug for Stuart Gordon's memoir. His memoir recently came out. It's called Naked Theater and Uncensored Horror. And it was written by Stuart and was finished just before he passed away at the beginning of the pandemic. And in it, there's a chapter on shooting From Beyond and Dolls. He was shooting them. He was cutting one while he was shooting the other. And he tells the story of Ted Sorrell and how the makeup, the makeup was so torturous to put on that Ted wanted to do all his lines in the makeup in one day. And because the makeup was so restricted, and it cut off the blood flow, and he actually almost died. But if you worked with Stuart in theater, you know that was sort of the norm. And this is a drawing actually by Stuart Gordon. This came out of my From Beyond box. Stuart was, as I said, an art student, and he would do his own, early in his career, he did his own storyboards. And this was a drawing he did for the production team. And this movie was the first one that he shot in Italy. And this was a drawing for the production team. And you can see the attic set with the resonator and the computer equipment in the back. But what all the rest of that stuff is something that was in the script that was never shot, which was when the resonator was working and vibrating, and you went beyond. What you found beyond in the original script was a Lovecraftian world. It was much more. The script was much more connected to Lovecraft's mythology than the ultimate movie became. This was a temple to the old ones, to the Lovecraftian gods and monsters from the beyond, from the extra-dimensional beyond that was part of Lovecraft's basic mythology. Charlie Band said, yeah, okay, we're going to do that, and it was the first thing that was cut. Because back in the day, I mean, you couldn't, the CG, you could see the effects in the film. The CG wasn't what it is today. You couldn't just do this with compositing. They would have actually had to build it, and there was no way that Charlie was going to pay for that. This is, by the way, the craziest movie we could make for the budget that we had. This is artwork that Stuart liked, and I just wanted to show it. It was the alternative artwork for another poster. There are actually a few posters with this artwork for From Beyond. And it was artwork that was at one point considered for the creature. And you can see how it's kind of Geiger-esque. This is just post-Alien, and you can see that it's kind of, that it kind of has that alien Geiger kind of features to it. As Stuart wasn't ultimately that happy with the monster that was built for them by the production crew, so the cutting is kind of quick at certain points. And again, this is something that wasn't going to be budgetable, but Stuart loved this art. And I believe that the Nighthawk used to do, I don't know if they still do it, they used to do double features that used to be able to, they used to find on the marquees from 42nd Street before it became Disneyfied back in the day when it was mostly low-budget features and pornography. And this isn't quite 42nd Street. I think this is actually 49th Street. But you can see on the marquee there's From Beyond. That was us, Down and Dirty. In a double feature with Sky Bandits, anybody ever heard of Sky Bandits? It was a mashup of the Old West and World War I. It was a British movie. I don't know how they and there's my buddy on this here. So he was my oldest friend, and you can see that, and he was a great deal of fun. He was always fun to work with, unless of course you were close to death. What Stuart was one of the funniest people I ever knew, and the fact that his movies are so profoundly disturbing is what was very odd for us to find out that we could do that. But we also wanted to be funny too. It was, I think it was Pauline Kael in reviewing Re-Animator in the New Yorker, who said, the bloodier it got, the funnier it got, which we took as great praise, which I believe she meant as praise. Re-Animator did very well, but it didn't do very well at the box office. It ultimately was a huge blockbuster hit. Remember Blockbuster? But it wasn't. It didn't make a lot at the box office because it was released unrated. And when the Stuart refused to submit, it could only get an X rating. If you know Re-Animator, you know why. They could only get an X rating, and Charlie didn't want to release it with an X rating, and Stuart didn't want to do any of the cuts that would have gotten it an R rating. So they released it unrated, and if you release a movie unrated, you cannot advertise it. So it didn't do very well at the box office. So when we told Charlie we were going to do another Lovecraft movie, and he was behind that entirely, he said, well, yeah, okay, do exactly the same thing as Re-Animator, just no blood and don't make it funny. Okay. So we went to ooze instead. As you'll notice, there were gallons and gallons and drums of ooze. And although there's enough blood to get your attention. And we kind of hid the humor. And it's another reason we didn't work with Bruce Abbott again. We miss him. He was not reprised he didn't come in the. Stuart Stuart came from a theater where he worked with a company for years, for pretty much decades. And he was an actor's director, and he loved to, the actors loved him you talk to Jeffrey and Barbara and Bruce nowadays, and they say they rehearsed for Re-Animator. No one ever rehearses in Hollywood. But Stuart rehearsed his actors, and he likes to think of them as a company. But we didn't bring Bruce along because Re-Animator was bloody and funny, and he was the straight man. And we just couldn't do the same kind of humor in From Beyond. We were pretty happy with the way it came out. It was just about as crazy as we wanted to make it. We would have liked a couple. What you saw was the R version. I'm not letting him ask any questions.
My job for me. It's nice.
This was the R version, and it's missing two of my favorite moments. Yeah, okay. It was which I believe you can find on the DVDs, on both of the DVDs. This film was almost lost. It was discovered, a viable print was discovered, but it was the R-rated print because Charlie demanded that the film be released with an R, so it could be shown in theaters. And Stuart didn't want to make it. Stuart being Stuart didn't want to make any cuts, and the censors really, the MPAA really refused to give it an R rating unless he cut a couple of things. And Stuart would cut a second out of the film and send it back to them. Just to make them watch it over and over and over. But finally, they made him cut what was cut out of the film, but you can find it on the DVD. One was at the very beginning when Bunny the dog, and the actress's name, the bunny's owner, is Bunny Summers. The dog, at the end, when you see the cameras coming around to the dog and the headless body, it cuts pretty quickly. That shot went on, and you could see how the neck is twisted, where the head was sucked off by the creature. The dog is licking it. Why would you cut that? And the other one is when Dr. Block, named after Robert Block, the writer of Psycho, when Dr. Block finds Crawford chewing on a brain, and she's wonderful in that scene. That's Stuart's wife. That's Carolyn. We met in college. I'll tell you that story someday. She's wonderful in that scene. She's such a bitch through the rest of the movie. But she's so nice in that scene. Don't eat those, Crawford. It'll make you sad. He sees her brain and he wants to eat that. So he sucks her eyeball out so he can suck out her brain. And the scene goes on where he spits her eyeball out. It lands in the goo in such a way that it watches them. Isn't that great? It's the most postmodern thing I ever did. Really proud of that. But otherwise, that's the film that we wanted to make as the follow-up to it.
Fantastic. So the pineal gland, obviously, a massive focus in this movie. I'm curious, where does that come from? Maybe you could speak to that a little bit. What the inspirations were for it.
I'm not sure inspiration is the word. It comes from Lovecraft. There are several Lovecraft stories where he was focused on the pineal. Lovecraft knew the science of his day, almost all kinds of science. He knew the cosmology, he knew the biology, and he knew the anatomy. At the time that Lovecraft was writing, the pineal was even more mysterious than it is. We understand now that the pineal part of the endocrine system secretes melatonin. So it's sensitive to light. So it is sensory sensitive, which is one of the reasons we wanted to use it. And the idea of night and day and crossing into dream, we wanted to do that as an idea of moving beyond the norm, beyond the normal lives the normal daily lives that we live. But the pineal also was thought to be the third eye, the sixth chakra, the third eye, and that you could see with it, you could see a spiritual world. Not that the world we end up seeing in From Beyond is very spiritual, but it is. It is something that the idea was that you could see beyond. And for the pineal, which actually exists in the middle of your brain, right smack in the middle, for it to come through for it to grow a stalk and come through the brain was really. It's sort of in Lovecraft. That is not quite the way we do it. But Stuart wanted to, again, visualize it. He wanted to make it visual, and I think it's just charming. When it pops out, and it's such a clever little guy. He's so much fun. So it actually does come from Lovecraft. The story from Beyond itself is only, I believe, 3 or 4 pages long. And we tell the whole story in the pre-credit sequence. So the rest of the movie we had to make up, but we tried to make it up from Lovecraftian, from elements from other Lovecraft stories, including the pineal. That was that was an idea that you'll see that the adaptation credit goes to Stuart, Brian Usna, and myself, and the pineal was Stuart took it.
Great. Well, let's talk more about Lovecraft. So a lot of your work has been based on Lovecraft stories. As you went through your career, was a lot of that intentional focus on Lovecraft? Was it through other means? Were you ever intentionally trying to be branded as such, or avoiding that kind of?
Now, once Re-Animator was the success that it was, we couldn't avoid being branded. It was. If we were going to make movies, we were going to make those kinds of movies. Stuart did go on to make other movies. And if you haven't followed his entire career, he ended his film career. His last 3 films are essentially noir films: King of the Ants, Edmund. He did I think it's one of his best films, a film of David Mamet's play Edmund, and Stuck, a film called Stuck. And they're terrific films. If you get a chance, if you haven't seen them before, you get a chance to see them. But they are not horror films. They're noir-esque, not thrillers, but sort of noir-esque, dark films. He was able to move beyond. Love it. Oh, okay. There's a second. This film was shot in Italy. It was the first of Stuart's films shot in Italy. And I think that helps us understand that Stuart is not essentially a Hollywood director. Stuart is, I think, more of a European director. That film is not shaped like a Hollywood film. Matter of fact, it's not shaped like almost anything. It's shaped like The Creature. It's amorphous and it's malleable and it's disgusting. And it's Stuart's films. Stuart always wanted to be free, and he didn't want to be. He saw the feature form as a tyranny, and he didn't really want to necessarily have to conform to the feature form. But the sort of the wonderful thing that happened there was the Italian crew he was working with. In Italian, there's no translatable word, single word for beyond. First of all, I'm very proud of the title of this film. It's the only two preposition title in all of film. But in Italian, there's no single word for beyond. You can be under something or over something or around something, but there's no word for beyond. So the Italians started to call this film, the Italian crew called this film From Behind.
That's appropriate.
Or in Italian, From a Behind. And Stuart thought that was wonderful. He just thought that was spectacular. But yeah, we were for a while branded. But that changed a little bit when Stuart and Ed Naha, who wrote the film Dolls, that Stuart was cutting at the same time he was shooting From Beyond. Stuart and Ed wrote Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the Disney movie. And Stuart didn't get to direct it, but it got him an office in Disney, in the animation building at Disney. That was just the coolest office in the world, on the Disney lot in LA. And it was, so Stuart was always moving, Stuart loved, his theater was a great, the Organic Theater in Chicago was a great narrative theater. They were a storytelling theater in the great tradition of Chicago story theater. But they were also funny. These were some of the funniest actors and some of the funniest shows that you could possibly go see in a theater. And so we always wanted to be a little funny, and that always sort of, the audience seemed to be happy with it, but the producers were always a little, except for Brian. We were very lucky to have Brian Usman as a producer. He's a terrific guy. He's a good director too. He's got a company, his Film Society, he's an excellent film. And we were very lucky to have him as our producer.
Great. I think we have a few more minutes and probably time for one more. Bondage is obviously a theme in this movie, and throughout your career, you've gravitated towards sort of taboo subjects, especially for the day. So I'm curious how that came about. Anything you can speak to?
Well, at the time, it was the whole idea of the senses, of pushing the senses beyond, pushing the sexuality beyond, and into the non-normative. At the time, we were, the idea was that this was abnormal. This was not normal sexual behavior to engage in sadomasochistic bondage. And we looked at it as something that was the sexual and in our world, sensual equivalent of beyond, of pushing the boundaries. However, recently there were several blog posts. This movie just keeps getting blogged about. And there were several blog posts back in the pandemic when I guess people had nothing better to do, that took the film to task for criticizing Barbara, or Catherine, the character Catherine, for succumbing to her urges to engage in sadomasochistic sex. And the blogger, it was seven, but not just one, a couple. He was followed up by somebody. Suggested that this is liberating, that this was liberatory, and I'm not sure that's what we were going for. They did give us credit for actually at least going there in the film. So it's interesting how the viewership changes over the generations, the viewership of this film. And the fact that it's still being viewed, I can't tell you how both happy and embarrassed I am that this is still in the oeuvre. And I am again one more time very grateful to the Nighthawk and to the Bklyn Horror Society for setting up this screening. I hope you enjoyed at least some of it.